That's right. This week, in its push to hire 125,000, God, that number is astounding, fulfillment and transportation employees, according to Retail Dive, Amazon has raised its average hourly starting rate to over $18. And in addition, starting in January 2022, according to Chain Storage, Amazon will also begin funding full college tuition as part of its $1.25 billion effort by 2025 to expand educational opportunities for its employees. One note specifically on that program, called the Career Choice Program, is that all tuition and fees are paid in advance too, so employees do not have to submit for reimbursement, as is a popular approach with some of Amazon's competitors. So, David, are you ready?
Let's do it.
David, pressure on wages and employee benefits overall appear to be ramping up. How are you advising clients to approach and solve this issue?
Many of our clients are thinking about this topic top of mind. You've seen Walgreens, CVS, Walmart, all raised minimum wages. But I think if we step back, it's really the easiest answer and potentially a lazy response.
Really?
I think that the playbook that many retailers are using is outdated. You know, Gen Z and millennials now make up more than 50% of the workforce, and they think about a lot more than just compensation. So I think our clients are thinking about a full kind of employee value proposition. So starting with mission and purpose and what does the company stand for, thinking about things like scheduling, flexibility, training and development, and then obviously compensation and benefits matter, but they are just one piece of a bigger pie. And it's proven that piece alone is not moving the needle in terms of hiring. And it's going to just get worse with seasonal hiring ramping up.
Mm-hmm. Right, Dave, that's an interesting point. Like, the question I have is there still a threshold that you think people need to be thinking about? Like, you know, are we still going to see the average wage rate continue to move up and up just as like the barrier to entry? Like, your point about it's not really moving the needle seems definitely appropriate given what we're seeing in the marketplace. But that's been my thing, is like, even though there may be better approaches to it, do we have to still assume that it's going to be creeping up and that the retailers, you know, have to figure out some way to invest in new technologies or new ways of doing things to be able to accommodate that over time?
Yeah, I think we can broadly assume that minimum wages will continue to go up. I do think that it's a market level kind of decision, right? So $15 across the board doesn't make as much sense. It should be tailored to a market level. But I do think we'll see wages continue to rise and pressure on automation and technology to fill that gap, to keep the P&L shaped appropriately.
And what's your take on this story?
You know, I think, like, much like David's saying, I mean, these are necessary incentives that Amazon, just because they're Amazon doesn't mean they're not fighting to find people to fill these roles too. Everybody's struggling for employees right now. And so I think it's necessary for them to increase wages and to offer this tuition assistance in order to start, you know, to keep taking those people that they started to get away from the service industries during the pandemic. I mean, going to work at Amazon where they're hiring in a fulfillment or transportation environment. I just heard an article this morning about women truck drivers who are driving for Amazon, who can make, you know, twice the amount of money driving a truck of Amazon product across the country for 1 week than they can working a 40-hour-a-week job. So I think Amazon is not immune to this. Plus they have, you know, AWS and other revenue sources that are able to help make this easy adjustment, like David's saying, for their employees.
Yeah, that was the part for me when reading this story too. It's just, you know, it's just another example of something Amazon has a right to win in based on its business model with AWS and the Prime subsidy that we as consumers are giving them. So even if it's the lazy approach, it probably is in the long run, right, a really effective approach, because they can just keep pushing that bar higher and higher on what those expectations are. And Amazon, like it or not, is pretty good at understanding what its customers want. And I'd say on whole, some people might disagree with this, but on the whole, even understanding what its employees want day in and day out. Kristin, do you have any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think it's really important, as Dave was saying, to understand, you know, what's important to your workforce. And so given that, how are you going to solve this problem? And it goes broader than, you know, wage increases. Being a little cynical specifically on this point, you know, how much of this is really big PR versus reality? Because I believe that anything over what, 5,200, you actually have to tax. So are employees going to be taxed if they're reimbursed for this tuition? And are they really getting sort of, you know, what, full scale tuition reimbursement? Like how deep is this going? Or is it more similar to what Google's already doing, which they're getting accredited for certain, training classes?
That's a great point. And then the one thing I never see is like how many people, I never even see reports of how many people actually use this either. There's always the anecdotal one-offs of this person in, Florida used this and we talked to them, but you never see anything really in mass around the statistics of usage around this too.